Zeno's paradox, and
टॉपिक पढ़ लो पहले.
in chasing destinations, we forget the poetry of the journey. Introduction: Zeno's paradox and the illusion of arrival. Imagine the Greek hero Achilles in a foot race against a slow moving tortoise. The tortoise is given a head start. As Achilles sprints to catch up, he first reaches the tortoise starting point, but the tortoise in that time has moved slightly ahead. Achilles covers that distance too, but again the tortoise has moved forward. Zeno of Elea proposed this paradox to argue that motion is an illusion. Achilles can never overtake the tortoise because the goalpost keeps shifting. While mathematics has long resolved Zeno's paradox, its metaphor remains strikingly relevant to the human condition. Like Achilles, we are locked in a perpetual race, not against others, but against imagined endpoints. Each time we believe we are about to arrive at success, fulfillment, peace, we find the destination has moved. We recalibrate and sprint again. In doing so, we fail to notice the subtleties of movement itself, the learning, relationships, insights, failures, and beauty along the way. In chasing destinations, we forget the poetry of the journey.
What are we doing here, guys? Anish and Manish.
So we are trying to I think the central idea is that the way we think about time is sort of a trap. Time is an illusion which has been created for convenience, so to say. And to think that our life moves in from checkpost to checkpost, and the way we think about time is the perfect recipe for disaster, because we'll start thinking that okay, if we reach this point, we have achieved everything, and we keep chasing that, and we suddenly realize that the whole time has gone, and we have actually not lived the moment. So I think that's the idea.
So, see, this is more about the journey and less about time, Anish. In chasing destinations, we forget the poetry of the journey.
Okay.
So, the journey itself has some inherent traits that we tend to ignore, we tend to bypass because we are too much fixated on the final destination that we want to arrive at, not the Final Destination movie that was recently released. ठीक है. So that is the gist of it. आप लोगों ने क्या लिखा है इंट्रोडक्शन में?
uh so मैंने one sec. So should I read it or?
एलैबोरेटली पढ़ने के बजाय उसके आप जिस्ट बताओ.
हाँ, एक सेकंड सर. So मैंने uh, I, I've tried to paint like a short story where like the person in the story wakes up, he wakes up checking his email, he thinks about okay, he has to do these things today, then he thinks about what he has to achieve for the next promotion, and days turns into months, months turns into year, and then suddenly one day he realizes that he never stopped to enjoy the day, stopped to enjoy the relationships that he had, the moments that he experienced. And one day he woke up even with all the success, but realized that he was feeling empty. So somewhat
वेरी
of
एप्ट.
that.
वेरी एप्ट इंट्रोडक्शन. व्हाट अबाउट यू मनीष?
सर मैंने थ्री इडियट में के दो कैरेक्टर लिए, रेंचो और चतुर. उनका एक डायलॉग फॉर्मेट में लिखा है कि चतुर पूछता है कि हाउ टू गेट टॉप रैंक रेंचो. रेंचो बताता है कि डू नॉट चेंज मार्क्स, एंजॉय द स्टडीज, लर्निंग. चतुर डर जाता है कि व्हाट, डू नॉट चेंज द इन गोल फॉर विच वी हैव कम. तो रेंचो बताता है कि गोल टॉप मार्क नहीं है, गोल है लर्न करना, फ्रेंड्स बनाना, टीम स्पिरिट सीखना. फिर चतुर कहता है तो देन व्हाट अबाउट मार्क्स. रेंचो फिर कहता है कि इफ यू विल एंजॉय द जर्नी ऑफ लर्निंग, ऑटोमेटिकली यू विल गेट गुड रैंक. चतुर कहता है कि अगर इफ आई डिड नॉट गेट द रैंक देन. तो रेंचो कहता है कि still you develop character, understand in the process of learning, you can do comeback, but if you will only dwell on the marks, you will rote learn, indulge in toxic competition. This will make yourself person with bad attitude and lack of depth of understanding. चतुर कहता है I understand रेंचो, थैंक यू. तो इस डायलॉग से मैंने समझाने की कोशिश की।
रिलेवेंट, अगेन इट्स रिलेवेंट गाइस। इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अब थोड़ा सा ऑफ ट्रैक लगेगा। एक एक शेर है जॉन एलिया का। अब पूरी तरीके से शेर मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा है, लेकिन कॉन्टेक्स्ट यही है। वो शेर कुछ इस तरीके से है, और वो अपने सिग्नेचर स्टाइल में बोलते हैं कि जिंदगी क्या यूं ही दिन गुजर जाएंगे। टॉपिक बोल रहा है कि इन चेजिंग डेस्टिनेशंस वी फॉरगेट द पोएट्री ऑफ जर्नी। जिंदगी क्या यूं ही दिन गुजर जाएंगे, ऐसे जिंदा रहे तो हम मर जाएंगे, राइट? सो अगेन देयर the focus is not on being alive, it's on living life the right way. Fine, so very well presented guys, relevant introductions हैं। definitional paragraph, now this is the more challenging aspect। पढ़ लो अनीश।
Uh, the topic uses figurative language to critique a deep-seated human thoughts or final outcomes. These can be personal, collective, or spiritual. Poetry of the journey is a metaphor for the richness of experience encountered during the pursuit, the emotional highs and lows, the gradual transformation, the moments of serendipity, and the shaping of character. The statement implies that modern life, in its outcome obsessed mode, often renders the journey invisible, even though it is in the journey that true growth and meaning resides.
इन्हीं लाइंस पर गाइस आपने लिखा है डेफिनेशनल पैरा?
सब मैंने डेफिनेशन पैरा लिखा नहीं है।
लिखा ही
और
नहीं है?
सब आई डिडंट अटेंड दो, तो मेरा थोड़ा स्ट्रक्चर थोड़ा डिफरेंट वे में किया था ये वाला।
अच्छा ठीक है, अभी तो आपके समझ में आ गया।
जी
और
जी।
बताइए।
मैंने लिखा है सर, इसी लाइन पे लिखा है।
इसे लाइन,
डेस्टिनेशन को पहले समझाया है, फिर पोएट्री ऑफ जर्नी को, फिर मीनिंग ऑफ द कोट।
गुड नाउ thesis and structure, yes Anish।
Uh, Thesis and structure. This essay argues that while goals are important to motivate action, the overemphasis on destinations can rob life of presence, depth, and meaning. In seeking to arrive, we often miss the value of simply moving. The essay explores this theme through four perspectives: philosophical, psychological, why humans seek ends and what they miss in doing so; sociological, cultural, how society reinforces a result centric mindset; institutional developmental, the impact of destination thinking in education, governance, and economic planning; personal, existential, the individual lives suffers when journeys are reduced to instruments. Each perspective will be explored with examples, ideas, and reflection.
ठीक है, थेसिस भी मिसिंग है क्या अनीश?
सर
Missing, हाँ मैं
sir, in the thesis perspective, aren't we asking the questions of why, how, and the same thing to elaborate on the essay?
yes, in a way we are।
I just had a question. ये दोनों paragraph, won't that break like the flow of the essay if you're
तो
planning to?
पैराग्राफ
So the thesis part or definition वाला part, if we like explicitly state कि ये चीज हम कर रहे हैं, like in an academic essay जैसे हम करते हैं, like
ठीक है,
if you're
फिर what makes more sense? आप बताओ, आप सजेस्ट करो।
so like the way I approach essays is I ask the question, like I ask like series of questions. Just say for here, in chasing destinations, we forget the poetry of the journey. Then I'm like, what is the world that we are living in? Why are we living in such a world? And what is the impact of living in such a world? So these are like the three segments that I've done. So when we are talking about what is the world that we'll be living in, I describe what is the present state, which is malaising both the individual and the institution. When we are talking about the second question, which is about why we are living in this present world. So we are talking about how value structures of the present society, consumerism, talks about achieving. There's this idea of success and different institutions, whether the media, whether our interactions shape this value structure and we follow this. And then the third para being what is the impact here? And then आप जो dimensions बोलते हो सर कि how does this impact, let's say, the social institutions, the educational institutions, the governance structures, and then I talk about the antitheses, or like the flip side of it, how we can break away from it. And conclusion, I am trying to, so I tried to put a story which was the first story, but like the reformed version of it, so that it's finishing like a circle.
So, see, what you have said is that you break your essays, say for example, in this case, in three subparts. ठीक है?
Hmm.
And then you move ahead in a fluid manner. You try to move ahead in a fluid manner, and you believe that giving such a thesis para breaks the flow.
Like I like say I understand like the importance of this, because you want the reader to also know that we understand the terms, you're defining the terms, you're laying it down. But so like this is what my personal inhibition is about using this, is won't it make it a little more, I don't know, a little explicit, which might be like, okay, मैं ये चीज करने वाला हूँ, instead of showing them through the
Good
essay.
question. Good question. Now, guys, here making things explicit has become important.
Okay.
Fine. इन अदर काइंड ऑफ राइटअप्स, अगर आप क्रिएटिव राइटिंग आपको पसंद है या आप और कुछ टाइप के राइटिंग करते हो, आप ब्लॉग लिखते हो, फाइन, तो वहां पर वो सस्पेंस बनाए रखना और स्ट्रैटेजिक मोमेंट पर चीजों को रिवील करना, दैट मेक्स सेंस देयर. बट हियर हियर आवर मोटिव इज टू मेक आवरसेल्व्स वेरी क्लियर at the
Fine.
earliest moment possible.
Hmm.
Fine. That is one thing. Number two, guys, thesis paragraph incorporate करने के बाद, ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं कि करना, नहीं करोगे तो मार्क आएंगे ही नहीं. But generally we have seen that students are getting marks, and those students who are getting marks have written thesis paragraphs. Many of those have written of them have written thesis paragraphs.
Okay.
Right? So setting the tone of the essay is a good practice. It gives impression of structure. You are moving in a well planned manner, structured manner and well planned manner. आप ऐसे ही बस जो दिल में आ रहा है वो लिखते नहीं जा रहे हो. आपको पता है आप क्या करने वाले हो, कब करने वाले हो.
Got
ठीक है? यस, अमय.
Sir, while framing a thesis paragraph, like a couple of days ago, we have used a template of there was an essay on whether it was a romantic man or scientific man. In that essay, you have tried creating a thesis by arguing that a human is a scientific man. Then you later showed how he is a romantic man. Then finally, you ended up saying that both are equally important. That is a synthesis we have done. But here you have approached why, how, and impact of this thing. Is
Very
there
good
any
observation.
is there any framework or guidelines to decide which kind of a thesis structure or framing are we going to apply on the particular essay topic?
You tell me what is the difference between that particular topic that we had discussed on that day and this particular topic.
In that topic, there was a dialectic nature of whether this or that.
Very good. That sums up everything. So
In
there
this
was,
topic, it is a clean sweep of making one type of statement, like taking it as like synchrotomous. Like this is the ultimate truth.
very good. So if there is an inherent tension in the topic, there an inherent tension was present. Scientific man over romantic man, then romantic man over scientific man. Then we come to the middle ground. So synthesis आखिरी में आएगा. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. वहां पर उसका स्कोप था. Fine. Here we don't have that scope. Here we have been presented with a paradox that human mind, not human mind. We have moved to the next topic. Chasing destinations, we forget the poetry of the journey. So it has been presented in a very figurative way, right? And ये बताया जा रहा है कि because of being very much aim centered, we are losing out, we are missing out on many things in life. broadly saying. ठीक है. अब इसको बस सुपरफिशियली अगर बोलना कि नहीं, देयर आर एक्सेप्शंस, हर कोई ऐसे नहीं करता, हर कुछ लोग अपनी जिंदगी भी जीते हैं, that's a very superficial argument to make, Amay. Right?
you should just take it like universal truth and just explain why it's happening.
Why it's happening? Because we see it happening around us.
No. In the
Not
thesis, we have to take it like ultimate truth, and we have to just keep expanding with multiple questions.
that's always the case. We take the main premise of the topic to be true in the beginning, and if later, if there is scope, we go for providing counters. Now, in that particular topic, romantic man versus scientific man, we had this scope of giving good amount of space to the other perspectives, antithesis and synthesis. Here we don't have that scope, so we will have to write more on the main premise in this topic, right? Yes, Manish.
सर मैंने इसमें काउंटर पर्सपेक्टिव लिखा है सर।
अरे काउंटर पर आते हैं, इस ऐसे में पहले आगे तो बढ़ते हैं, ठीक है? काउंटर बाद में आता है, फाइन।
ये सर लास्ट में ही लिखा है।
हाँ, लास्ट में जब हम नजदीक जाएंगे एंड पोर्शन के, तब आपका काउंटर सुनेंगे। नाउ कमिंग बैक टू यू, अनीश।
The human brain is the philosophical psychological perspective, the mind's fixation on ends. The human brain is evolutionarily wired to seek goals. From ancient times, survival dependent on anticipating future rewards, food, shelter, safety. In a modern world, this has evolved into the pursuit of symbolic achievements, degrees, careers, fame. Psychologists term this the goal gradient effect. The closer one is to the perceived goal, the harder one works, often ignoring everything else. Yet this comes at a cost. The hedonic treadmill theory suggests that people quickly adapt to achieved goals and seek new ones without lasting satisfaction. Happiness then remains a horizon that always recedes. Philosophers like Alan Watts warned against living in preparation mode, treating life like a rehearsal for something else. Likewise, J. Krishnamurti observed that the moment is not a stepping stone to a future, but life itself. When we focus solely on the future, we forget to inhabit the present, where all poetry resides.
Okay.
Sociological cultural perspective, a world of metrics and milestones. Modern society valorizes visible success, from school ranking to annual performance appraisals, from GDP numbers to social media likes. We are surrounded by quantifiable measures of progress. The journey, the process of learning, working, evolving is often invisible in such systems. In India, that is acutely seen in the coaching and competitive example cultures, where teenagers are trained to crack exams like NEET or UPSC. Hobbies, exploration, or rest are often seen as distractions. The exam becomes the ultimate destination, and those who fail to reach it are stigmatized, regardless of what their journey cultivated. Similarly, in the global workplace, productivity is measured in deliverables, not in collaboration, empathy, or ethical growth. The focus on key performance indicators often sidelines the intangible of effort and improvement. Yet some cultures resist this reduction. In Zen Buddhism, the concept of Zazen emphasizes full awareness in every act, whether cleaning, cooking, or archery. The process is not a means, it is an end in itself. That is the poetry industrial society often forgets.
All right, guys, what are we doing here? ये वाला सोशियो-कल्चरल पर्सपेक्टिव है, इससे पहले फिलोसॉफिकल और साइकोलॉजिकल पर्सपेक्टिव हमने देखा है. What are we doing here?
Right. So we are providing like a psychological reason why our brains have a tendency to be wired towards a destination specific paradigm, and we give a reason for that. And then we come to the second one and we talk about its examples. So it's assertion, reasoning, and examples, ARE model, right? So we give the assertion that this is because we have a tendency to think about this. We give the reasoning that we think about decisions because our brain is wired in this way, and our society also rewards these certain things. And then we see the manifestation of that in these competitive exams. Then we talk about a counter narrative where we talk about Zen Buddhism or Alan Watts or Taoism for that matter, which talks about slowing down, awareness, which is a direct uh, antithesis to this concept.
अगेन यहाँ पर हमने रेफरेंस कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जामिनेशंस का दिया है यूपीएससी. अगेन वी कीप ऑन एम्फसाइजिंग अ लॉट ऑन इनकलकेटिंग हॉबीज, इंटरेस्ट्स, राइट? आप लोग
Can we call this ironical, sir?
It is ironical. Why?
No, sir. We are writing about competitive exam while giving a competitive exam.
In that sense, you might say it's ironical, but it's not really ironical. We are analyzing it and we are able to pinpoint at what exactly is going wrong. How exactly are we missing that poetry in our preparation journey? If you are just sitting in your room and studying for long hours without inculcating any interests, hobbies, without pursuing things that you like, then you are definitely moving in this process in a very mechanical manner. Okay? And in the process, you are alienating yourself. Fine. Aage.
Development and institutional perspective, the tyranny of targets. Institutions reflect society's obsession with destinations. Consider how development is measured primarily through GDP, infrastructure growth, or export targets. But these say little about well-being, sustainability, or justice, elements essential to a meaningful collective journey. The tragedy of this mindset was visible in India's rush to industrialize post 1991. While economic liberalization lifted millions, it also led to environmental degradation and rising inequality. Policies aimed at quick growth often sidelined long-term ecological and social resilience. Similarly, education systems worldwide have turned increasingly outcome-driven. Students are tested for what they remember, not what they question. The National Education Policy 2020 in India attempted to course correct by valuing creativity and experiential learning, emphasizing that education must be a journey, not a race. In governance, too, the fixation on short term political gains can hamper long term nation building. For example, pursuing voter pleasing schemes in a 5-year term may ignore deeper reforms in healthcare, education, or federalism. Journeys that are less glamorous but more essential.
Okay.
Personal existential perspective, losing oneself in arrival. At a personal level, destination obsession can erode meaning. A person who defines self-worth by promotions may feel lost upon retirement. An artist who seeks only rewards may never enjoy the act of creation. A pilgrim fixated on reaching a shrine may miss the spiritual unfolding on the way. The Japanese concept of ikigai, a confluence of what one loves, is good at, can be paid for, and what the world needs, encourages people to find joy in the daily doing, not in the final arrival. It is the journey of alignment, not just the goal, that gives life coherence. Consider mountaineer George Mallory, who was asked why he wanted to climb Mount Everest. His reply, because it's there. The spirit of adventure, not conquest, was his driver. His story lives on, not because he reached the summit, but because he dared to journey. In spiritual traditions, too, the path is often emphasized over the endpoint. The Bhagavad Gita exhorts action without attachment to results, nishkam karma, reminding us that the act of right doing is itself fulfillment.
Now we come to the counterpoint.
Counterpoint. Are destinations always distracting? Yet, to argue that destinations are always distractions would be unfair. For a cancer patient, remission is a real and urgent destination. For a nation, achieving independence or literacy is essential. For an activist, securing a law against injustice may be the goal. What matters is how we pursue these destinations. Are we trampling others on the way? Are we learning, adapting, evolving? Are we present? Even when goals are real, the journey is where the character is forged, where empathy is born, where resilience is built. As the Buddha taught, the path itself is the goal.
Okay, so we have brought in the ethical aspect over here while countering the main premise of the topic. The journey is not always a distraction. At times, the journey itself is as important, or probably even more important the destination is even more important than the journey at times. Fine, and we have given those examples over here.
So, but that's the, like my point is,
Hmm.
are we trying to say that the destination can be important than the journey sometimes, or are we saying that destinations also has a very important value to be played, but we must remember that we must not chase destinations blindly whilst forgetting the journey.
So that is the main premise. Not forgetting poetry of the journey is the main premise. But at times, more than the poetry of the journey, reaching that destination is more important. Reaching that destination in the in the fastest, most efficient, most effective manner possible is more important than enjoying the process. जैसे हम कैंसर पेशेंट की बात हम कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, एक्टिविस्ट की बात कर रहे हैं. एक एक्टिविस्ट के लिए तो फाइनल गोल अचीव करना जरूरी है. अब उस प्रोसेस में हो सकता है उस एक्टिविस्ट को हार्डशिप्स एक्सपीरियंस करने पड़े.
Hmm.
जरूरी नहीं कि हर जर्नी जो है सब बहुत बहुत ही रोमांटिसाइज्ड होगी. ठीक है, कई बार पोइट्री कड़वी भी होती है.
So, but that's the point now. So, because even like in arguendo for let's say the cancer patient here or like the activist here, the journey itself also holds a lot of value for these people. He like that hardship is where like the last line so यहाँ पे आपने जैसे लिखा है कि journey is where the character is forged. Like for a lot of people that hardship brings new direction, and to ignore that process may also uh, is to deprive oneself of the things and the learnings that they may have acquired throughout that journey.
So here we are
Like for
not
someone who
talking,
is
here we are not advocating ignoring anything. Here
okay,
rather we are emphasizing on the fact that some destinations are so sacrosanct, are so paramount, right? That the experiences born while reaching those destinations are or become second, they become secondary. ठीक है? Now those experiences might be pleasant, those experiences might be harsh, but in both the cases you are learning. Fine, but more than that learning, reaching that destination is very important. Say for example, if there is a country where refugee crisis is ongoing,
right.
and you are experiencing all the hardships while reaching that place, you are carrying aid with you. And it's very difficult for you to take that aid to that particular point where that refugee camp has been located. But
Hmm.
ultimately, you know, if you don't do it, it would result in real loss of life. And the more you delay it, you're not delaying it deliberately, but it's getting delayed. The more it's delayed, the more are the chances of loss of life. Fine.
Yeah.
So that final destination is of utmost importance for you than paying attention to what you are learning and what you are not in the process. Right. So this is what happens when you go for counters. These questions always arise. Isn't that the case that you are always learning, be it a hardship, your character is being forged,
So
right?
what is the value of counterpoints in like especially this essay? Like is it like that paramount to add like a
This
counterpoint here?
particular essay,
Yes, sir. This particular essay.
definitely it has value. See, counterpoints generally have value, and more so in abstract topics.
Okay.
Basically, it shows to the examiner that you have the ability to think beyond the topic. Here you're countering the main premise of the topic, right? It's very
Right.
easy to write as per the premise of the topic provided to you, right?
Mhm.
वहां भी बच्चे स्ट्रगल करते हैं. यूपीएससी को बोलना पड़ता है कि स्टे क्लोज टू द टॉपिक. बट व्हेन यू are showing the readiness and the ability to move a step beyond, fine, so that shows that you have that refined thought process and critical thinking.
So you can play a devil's advocate to anything. Okay.
You might say so, although not all counters would fall into the category of devil's advocate. Fine.
Mhm.
Not all counters are diametrically opposite to the main premise.
Okay.
Right? Sometimes you add ethical caveats. So that's one perspective, right?
Got it.
Yes, Amey.
Sir, in this particular paragraph, we have mentioned the conditions where destination is important, but later part we have showed that how we are going to pursue the destination by asking simple questions. Instead of asking those questions, can we make it more prescriptive? Like what actually matters while pursuing
Where have we posed those questions? Which part are you referring to?
the second? No, no, in the counterpoint itself, second paragraph.
Hmm.
See, what matters is how we pursue this destination. Are we trampling on others' way? Are we learning, adapting, evolving, or are we
It's up to
instead
us.
of that?
It's up to us. There is no one fixed rule. But see, posing rhetorical questions adds weight to your point. See, when you say, are we trampling others on the way? So you are making an ethical point over here that you are not supposed to trample others on the way. Are we learning, adapting, evolving? That means you are supposed to learn, adapt, evolve. Are we present? मतलब you should live in the present. You should not live in the past that has become history, nor in future, which is very uncertain. Right?
So what do you say is that this will be much more powerful and impactful than mentioning in a normative or prescriptive way. Like we have to, while doing such and such, we have to be like this. Instead of writing like that, if we pose these questions, it will be more impactful.
Definitely. Posing
So
rhetorical questions is a far more powerful way than framing plain sentences, be it normative, be it prescriptive, or be it other kind of statements. Fine. Now, I don't need to say this separately. When you are reading these questions, are you not feeling that punch?
yeah, it's actually it's creating a hook also. It keeps you engaging.
Right? It makes you think. Right? Fine. Now moving towards the conclusion, Anish.
Yes, sir. Conclusion towards a journey conscious society. In a world speeding towards its next milestone, technological singularity, Mars colonization, AI revolutions, we risk losing touch with the texture of living. We scroll through life seeking the next life, next like, the next level, the next big thing. But life is not a consequence, not a, not a sequence of endpoints. It is a landscape of unfolding. To reclaim the poetry of the journey, we must rethink education as exploration, not elimination, measure progress in well being, not just wealth, build institutions that reward process and ethics, not just outcomes, create cultures where presence is power and movement is meaning. In Zeno's paradox, Achilles never quite overtakes the tortoise, but maybe the wisdom lies not in overtaking, but in running mindfully, in recognizing that each step contains a story, each stride a lesson, each breath a verse. The poetry of the journey is always there. We only need to pause to feel and to listen.
So, Anish and Manish,
Hmm.
otherwise, क्या inputs हैं?
So I think I missed out, like firstly I missed out like certain elements which I needed to put in my essay. जैसे आपने बताया था वो definition वाला part, structure वाला part, and the counterpoints वाला thing. What one thing that I think I need to add here is I need to use the term which is specifically given in the topic itself, which is the poetry of the journey. I have used because I think it's a very good anchor after each of the paragraph. Like आप मैंने वो देखा कि आप जब भी यहाँ पे एक paragraph end हो रहा है, there is something which is anchoring it back explicitly with the topic, even though it is done subtly, but that is still anchoring. So I know that I am trying to do the same, but I'm trying to do it in a more I don't know, indirect way, which I need to change and make it more direct.
How do you
Because
make this difference between indirect way and subtlety?
so subtlety, matlab, you're not explicitly saying, okay, this goes back to the idea of uh, the topic which is given, which is you're putting like here also, right? So the poetry of the journey is always there. So the reader also knows that, oh, you are anchoring this entire idea back to the poetry of the journey. You have used the term without explicitly saying, okay, we are using this term to like anchoring it back.
ठीक है. And when you say you're using it in an indirect way,
So
is that?
like I'm using the idea of staying present, of being more aware, without explicitly saying how being more aware helps us enjoy the poetry of the journey. So वो एक और एक layer of extension बोलते हैं ना argument का, कि आप उसके natural conclusion में लेके जा रहे हो. वो वाला जो last anchor है वो
mental clarity. See, you have good mental clarity on this aspect now. Now you should be implementing.
Right.
Improvising and implementing accordingly in the next topic you write.